Good. All right, let's get to it. Thank you, Aaron, for joining Hollywood Times. Big day a few days ago with Britney Spears, I guess, freed finally. Can you give us kind of the lowdown and what your thoughts are?
Absolutely. Well, again, Mark, thanks for having me. This has been something that I've been predicting for a while. I think a lot of people felt that the process would unfold slower than it did. But really, from the time summer rolled around and Brittany spoke out for herself and Judge Penny started to get the wheels of justice in motion, it seemed pretty clear that once Brittany was given the truly exceptional opportunity as a conservatee to hire her own lawyer, Matthew Rosengart, that we would end up here sooner rather than later. So once the November hearing was set, I really felt strongly that that would be the end of the conservatorship. A conservatorship, by the way, that never should have been put in place 13 years ago in the first place. Nonetheless, the conservatorship is over, and there'll be probably two more meetings to kind of unpack certain legal things that need to be unpacked. One is set for December, and another one is set for January. But for all intents and purposes, as we like to say, Free Britney has worked, and she's been freed.
That's wonderful. So, how much do you think that the public's kind of support and rallying around her has helped, or or is that moot when it comes to all of the legal unfoldings of the events that took place?
So, it's a question, Mark, that I get asked a lot, and I always hate the answer that I have to give is because I don't think it mattered one way or the other. I think it was great that the public got excited, not just in Los Angeles and not just across the nation, but truly around the world. In fact, I gave an interview for the state radio station throughout Germany the other day. I used to live in Berlin as well, and there's so many Britney fans in Germany, and everybody wanted to know what would happen on Thursday.
Mhm.
So, Britney fans all over the world were kind of united in the Free Britney movement. But from a legal perspective, Judge Brenda Penny was very, very set on the California probate code, which is what determines what can happen and what can't happen in a conservatorship. And with the evidence that she was presented, she realized that Brittany, at this point in her life, does not need to be under a conservatorship. And again, with the help of excellent counsel, that she was finally, after 13 years, allowed to hire for herself, which again is something that conservatees did not have the right to do, although that's going to change. We can talk about that in a minute as well, because the governor did sign a new law recently for conservatorships. But nonetheless, that happened. And I really don't think in the long run that all of the support behind Brittany, maybe it did in a cosmic way, but in a legal way, it didn't really matter one way or the other. The judge did what the judge needed to do.
Mhm. So let's drill down on the actual pieces of, I guess, evidence or whatever it is that was presented to the court. Which were those things that Brittany's counsel presented that ultimately swayed Judge Penny to, rule the way she did?
Well, that Brittany was capable of taking care of herself. There were so many things that were happening back in 2007, 2008, that it was understandable that Brittany kind of got caught in a maelstrom of her own creation. And in this maelstrom that she created and her father and her mother helped create as well, this is what happens when the conservatorship took place. One of the things that Brittany said very clearly during the summer is that she was not going to undergo what she felt was the further abuse of any psychological examination. And I thought that in the long run, that position could hurt her because the court might look for more evidence that Brittany was capable of taking care of herself. But if we look at what Brittany's done in this 13-year conservatorship, the fact that she's been able to go out on the road, have very successful financial tours where she's earned millions of dollars, is something that people generally who are conservatees aren't able to do. So her lawyer put forth evidence that she didn't need to be under a conservatorship. That's on the one hand. And then on the other hand, we have all the ongoing things that he put forward about potential conservatorship abuses by her father and others. And that's part of what's going to get unpacked over the next couple of months.
Hmm. And was there anything unpacked this last date on Thursday, or are we as a public going to sit back and get all of the shocking details, which I think we've seen a little bit of the financial abuses by Jamie Spears? Can you talk a little bit about that, and what we would expect in the next two hearings that you had mentioned?
So we've seen two really excellent documentaries. Anybody who's seen the New York Times documentary and then the Netflix documentary that followed 3 days later, they did a pretty good job at setting out kind of a laundry list of conservatorship abuses. And these are things the court's going to look at. Now, I'm one who is a proponent of Spears versus Spears. I think that Jamie Spears is going to find himself in a different type of court of law, looking at both a civil case that Brittany could bring and perhaps a criminal case for both his acts and omissions as conservator in this case.
Mm.
And that's something that's not going to happen within the next couple of days, but absolutely could happen. One of the things that I've said all along about a potential lawsuit against Jamie Spears by Brittany is that I really believe that today Jamie Spears is judgment proof. And what that means is that even if Brittany were to win a case against her father for conservatorship abuses, a civil case where she was trying to get money back rather than have him put into prison, he's judgment proof. And I actually always love to tell the story of this lawyer that I knew who always liked to brag that he was judgment proof because he had all of his assets in his wife's name. And because this guy was pretty much a thief, what he was able to do was do bad acts. People could sue him, but never collect because there was never any assets that he had. And I think that Jamie Spears has probably put himself in the exact same situation. So if a civil suit against her father would help give Britney Spears the peace of mind that she's looking for, then perhaps her lawyer would advise her that that's something that she should proceed with. Otherwise, maybe she shouldn't.
So this is more like would it be a symbolic win, a psychological win for her rather than, getting some of those assets back is what you're saying.
I think the
Right.
assets are probably long gone. But again, that doesn't mean that the state of California can't bring criminal charges against Jamie Spears or against TriStar or potentially even against Lynn Spears or anybody else who is involved in illegal conservatorship abuse. And that's something that, again, those are one of the things that need to be unpacked over the next weeks and perhaps months. It can be done at the same time as Brittany is now allowed to go on and live her life.
So that's great. Would you think that if there were charges brought to Jamie for for the money and the financial abuses, that would forever change conservatorship law? As already this case, I think, and we discussed this last time, is
Yeah.
somewhat monumental, obviously in conjunction with the governor signing that, that new law. But there's probably a significant impact already by this by her being freed. But do you think that that would continue in the next two hearings, where now conservators are even more scrutinized, and it would prevent this type of abuse occurring again?
I agree with everything you're saying, but I don't know necessarily that these next two hearings are going to be for that. They're really going to be for the temporary conservator to essentially wind up the business of the conservatorship.
Okay.
That said, Brittany is absolutely a hero in conservatorship law. It's funny, a great parallel has to be Legally Blonde, right? I mean, when we think about Elle Woods and everything she did going from California to become this great, fictitious lawyer in movies, Brittany, without a legal education and without a law degree, has done a lot to help conservatives all over the nation. And as you mentioned, one of the things that Brittany's case has brought a lot of awareness to is conservatorship abuse, which is why Governor Newsom signed into law, which becomes effective January 1st, a fairly broad conservatorship reform. And one of the most important parts of this in California is that conservators such as Jamie Spears, who don't come from a financial background, meaning he's not a chartered professional accountant, will have to undergo training to become a conservator so they can understand the financial ins and outs of conservatorship law, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, as well as understand exactly what he did, which was conservatorship fraud. So all in all, while this has been, desperately traumatic for Britney over the past 13 years.
Mhm.
The impact that she's had on conservatorship law is going to be very, very positive.
Yeah, and we had talked about this last time where you think that other states will follow suit. And this will basically be a case that will set a precedent for basically monumental change when it comes to conservators.
It will, in part because California is such an important state when it comes to the probate code and when it comes to conservatorship law. It's not just the high profile celebrity conservatorship cases. California is a large state, and there have been a large number of conservatorships over the years. So if California leads, which was Governor Newsom's intent in signing this law, then others will follow.
That's wonderful. So, any other thoughts you have, Aron, on this, and especially its long-term impact, like we're assessing right now? And then I'll get to my last question after that.
Well, I think, its long-term impact upon Britney as a person remains to be seen. As her lawyer said yesterday when he was asked, is Britney going to go on tour? The correct answer, which he gave, is if she wants to. We know that if Britney goes out and does, as I've said several times, a free Britney tour or something like that, it's going to be worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And if that's what she'd like to do with her life moving forward, then more power to her. But more importantly, her conservatorship was very impactful on herself and others. So even if she, decides that she wants to remain a conservatorship activist, as she has been, we think about people like Colin Kaepernick and the amazing careers that they've had after the profession that they chose. She could do something similar as well. There's nothing precluding her from doing both. So I really think that the Britney Spears chapter is going to be very well looked upon by history, and she's going to have the opportunity now to do anything she wants to do.
What do you think she'll do?
I think she's a very smart woman. And I think that she understands that, first of all, she may feel a debt not to anybody except her fans. And one of the greatest ways to repay that cosmic debt is to travel around the world and give her fans what they love, which is to see her perform at the highest level. The second thing is, go ahead. No, please.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the second thing is she's obviously very, very, very smart. And she is a savvy business person. And she realizes that she could do one more tour. And if she's not already set for life, she would certainly be set for life, as her children would be after that. So it's really up to her. But I think that she's someone who has enjoyed the thrill of performance when it's been something that she's felt that she's had control over, and she's been doing for the right reasons. So even though she might have felt that she was forced to tour in the tours that she's done over the past 13 years, now she really does have control over her art and over her business.
Yeah, and what do you think that the relationship, I think she has a fiance or boyfriend. Do you think that that had a lot to play in, kind of mustering up the courage to do this? Because I think she seems, I think during when she was under conservatorship, the dad was very much controlling of even that. And I think that's one of the reasons the public got very much involved in this, because it's like, wow, she's a grown woman, almost 40 years old. And the father is like trying to control that aspect of her life.
So one of the things that these two excellent documentaries really did show us is that, in real time, the men in Britney's life always kind of had a bad reputation. People feared that her boyfriends, were the people taking advantage of her, but the reality was it was her own father. So I think that this has taught us a lot about the way we perceive the lives of celebrities. So all we can do is assume that Britney knows what's good for her. And if she's engaged to this guy, maybe he's a great guy and he's really good for her. And hopefully it all works out. Again, the other side of the coin are people who feel that Britney should be under a conservatorship and is not able to make her own decisions. And clearly that is the vast, vast minority of people now, rather than the majority of people, as it was years ago, who felt the conservatorship was something good for her and good for somebody in her position. So, let her live her life, let her choose to be with who she wants to be with, and let her choose to do what she wants to do for work if she wants to do anything at all.
Yes. And how do you think the overall perceptions of mental health has changed in the last, 15 years, I guess, of this from, T-1 whenever whenever the conservative started and today. What are your thoughts around that?
I think that our perception and conception of mental health is far more nuanced than it used to be. We can think about, famous athletes, for example, the kind of travails that Naomi Osaka is going through now in deciding when she's ready to play again, whether she wants to play again, because, she just wasn't in a mental state to be able to move forward. We see this a lot more in the public eye than we used to, because mental health was always seen as something when, if it was discussed, it was going to be a sign of weakness towards an athlete, towards a celebrity. And I think that Britney Spears, has brought a lot of positive evidence to show that it's okay to not always be well, but to have people around you and to try to figure things out. And the end result of that shouldn't be something like a conservatorship where you're living your life against your will. So I think that it's far more open. I think the discussions are far more advanced than they were 15 years ago, but Britney was probably only one kind of road marker on the way to where we need to get.
So a lot of times conservatorships are so permanent, right? Kind of like when it was put in place for her. Do you think that with this ruling and also, this case, that in the future, we'll see it more as temporary and be
Well,
able to get out of it easier?
yes, that's part of the California reforms that are coming. And I think that's a critically important reform, is that traditionally conservatees didn't have the right to have the conservatorship examined during set periods of time. Really, the only reason that Britney was able to do so is because she was Britney Spears and could still command the public spotlight. But within the California conservatorship reform, it's going to be built in that the conservatee can have the conservatorship looked at. And then you might have a case like Britney Spears where someone argues this person should no longer be under a conservatorship. As we've talked about before, there have been other famous celebrity conservatorships where even the celebrity has said, I feel like I need to be a conservatee at this point. And then there's a point where you don't need to be.
Mm-hmm. So it should not be this permanent, like almost like life in prison sentence, right? So this kind of shined a light on that. And I just hope that the average person, not someone with her celebrity status or money, is able to be in a good situation and not be prison to a family member that may not have their best intentions at heart. And this is so sad because it's her father, but God, the reality, we saw with the documentaries and how this is played out was the selfishness superseded the fatherly duty and fiduciary responsibility that he had over his own daughter.
There was a lot of money at stake. And one of the things that we saw with these kind of street celebrations that happened at Britney's hearing was a lot of other people coming out and talking about their own experiences in conservatorship. I remember watching one from this week's hearing where a woman from New York was talking about how her father had his cats taken away. He was under a conservatorship against his will. And he basically had no opportunity even to have any private meetings with his children. So conservatorship, when it kind of ends up running away from itself, we've seen can be a very, very destructive thing for everybody involved.
Absolutely. Wise words, Aron. And I just want to thank you for, all the series of interviews we've done to explore and unpack what has been going on with the developments on Free Britney. I wanted to end this by asking you what inspired you about this case. And I know you've spoken a lot on, the Britney Spears case. What initially inspired you to go and do your research in depth on this and to speak out about this?
It's because these things usually end really badly. And I had a sense from the beginning that Britney Spears had kind of the strength and depth of spirit, even though I didn't always agree with all the decisions she was making when she spoke out, to be able to kind of get over this and to be able to set an example for herself and for others. Usually when we see celebrities like this in the public spotlight, whether it's conservatorship or something else, it becomes a really bad made-for-TV movie where there's tragedy involved. And Britney was able to turn this around for herself and others, which made it an interesting case from the perspective of looking at a person who was a celebrity. But the legal issues here were always really, really interesting for me, because this case for the past 13 years did not function as a conservatorship was designed to function.
Yes, and that was a practical reality. And now it's become an American story of resilience. So I like you, I'm just so happy to see how this has turned out. And I know Brittany's ecstatic. We're excited to see her next moves. So I'm sure, maybe there'll be something newsworthy for you and I to catch up on regarding that. But I thank you for taking this time on a Sunday. And I really appreciate you, Aron, and all your insights. And we'll be talking soon.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Bye.